Hello everyone, I've recently been playing Resident Evil 4 Remake and I've been enjoying it. It is such a blast, going all the way to professional mode, unlocking the Chicago Sweeper and playing with the Infinite Rocket Launcher. And it got me thinking, it's about time I share my top 10 favorite games of
Resident Evil.
That's right, so before I continue, feel free to share your top 10 favorite Resident Evil games down in the comments below. Starting with an honorable mention is Resident Evil Code Veronica X. I love this, with Claire Redfield looking for her brother, being taken to this South American prison, meeting Steve Burnside. He's a bit annoying, but he has a sweet story nevertheless. Seeing Chris Redfield again. There's a reason why Chris Redfield got jacked up and punched a boulder in Resident Evil 5. And from the action set pieces, it does a lot to expand the story and also provide closure for the original set of Resident Evil games. After that, at number 10 is Resident Evil 0. You know, Rebecca Chambers, such an underrated character. She had a small role in the original Resident Evil. We get to see what happens before the events of the mansion. She's with Billy, who's a fugitive. I like their story there. That's an interesting story. A train, having to team up and go through these hordes of monsters. The villain is a bit cheesy, and the item management is a pain, but once you get used to it, this is a very underrated game. It was also the first Resident Evil game where you get to control two people at the same time. And I like it, you know, it's pretty much done in the same vein as the Resident Evil HD remake. After that, at number 9 is Resident Evil Revelations. This was originally a Nintendo 3DS video game, and then they remastered it for the PlayStation. This is an underrated video game. It feels like a mix between classic Resident Evil and current Resident Evil. I like it, you know, it has like a ghost ship vibe about it, seeing Jill Valentine with her partner Parker. Parker has a cool backstory that deals with BOWs. It's nice seeing our original characters with other characters that are added, dealing with different type of enemies, scanning and finding different collectibles, using weapons. I like the claustrophobic vibe of Resident Evil. That is when it's at its finest, whether it's a mansion, whether it's a house, whether it's a police department, or a ship, you know? I love that kind of close-quartered claustrophobic vibe, and that's when Resident Evil, I think, is at its finest, and this is an underrated video game. After that, at number 8 for me is Resident Evil Revelations 2. This, I think, is even better than the original. This has Claire Redfield. I've always loved her character since Resident Evil 2. Barry Burton makes an appearance. We haven't seen him since.
You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life.
Yeah, it's cool seeing him. You have a little girl, Natalia, there. You have Mora, his daughter. They each have different abilities, whether it be sensing danger, using a crowbar, throwing bricks. Everybody has different powers and abilities, and you have to utilize them to the best of your ability to fight enemies. And that is so cool how it's broken up into different episodes and them basically fighting their way through this prison. Of course, there's more sinister stuff at play, and some of the monsters and villains in this give a very unique kind of Silent Hill vibe about them. You know, this is where Resident Evil's starting to get beyond just the traditional Resident Evil and kind of going that Silent Hill route. I like Revelations 2. Revelations 2 are pretty much like a CGI movie put into a game. After that, at number 7 is Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 5 was an awesome game. I played it first on the PS3. It was great seeing co-op used for the first time. And in the original RE4, Ashley was kind of annoying. Like, Leon, help! It's nice seeing Sheva Alomar, you know. Before, like, yeah, you may have some glitches with her, but she's much more helpful, giving you herbs or ammunition when you need it. I like the co-op vibe of this, seeing Chris Redfield. And this is a Resident Evil that deals with monsters during daylight, during daytime, and I love how the developers play with that, seeing all these monsters in Africa. It's a mix of Resident Evil 4 and like classic Resident Evil, to say the least. Did it go a bit too much in one direction that Resident Evil 4 set up? Absolutely. Perhaps the wrong direction. But it still has a lot of scares, and the action, while it is a bit overload, still is fun as hell. And it's even better when you unlock infinite ammo and find the treasures and stuff. It's just, this game is awesome. Albert Wesker is at his finest here. He is just a pure badass. The twist with Jill Valentine was just so crazy when I first played it. This is a conclusion to like the first couple of games. It does get crazy. Chris does punch a boulder. Despite that, this is a lot of fun, and it's like a B-movie blockbuster come to life. What more can you ask for? After that, at number 6, for me, is Resident Evil 6. I know people are going to get mad at this. This is heresy to some, but I really enjoy Resident Evil 6. Even though it does go action overload, like if it was just Leon's campaign, that would have been enough. Like Leon, I remember I was playing that in college and I got freaked out thinking, what would happen if zombie outbreak happened while I was in my dorm here? Would it be like The Last of Us? Because I was in Austin, so I'm like, it'd be like The Last of Us or the beginning of this game. His relationship with Helena, getting set up, fighting Simmons. And then you have Sherry, seeing her growing up is so great from Resident Evil 2. Seeing Albert Wesker's son, seeing Chris Redfield at a crossroads. He's a broken spirit in this game. Ada Wong, there's some twists there. And this game was very ambitious, to say the least. It was nice seeing all the characters at the time cross over. That Leon Chris Redfield moment is just iconic. Perhaps, was it done to the best of its ability? No. It felt Devil May Cry-ish. It felt arcade-like. It was a great, fun game, but it wasn't entirely Resident Evil. It lost the essence. It got action over suspense and horror, But it still is a fun game. And like I say, when you unlock infinite ammo, it's even more fun. If it was just like Leon's campaign, I think it would have been a perfect game. But I like how it's like zombie. Chris Redfield's like Call of Duty. Sherry and Albert Wesker's son, that's more like Jake Wesker, is more like kind of stealth spy Metal Gear Solid stuff. So it's nice seeing them blend different genres and mechanics to each character. After that, at number 5 is Resident Evil. This is how you do a remake. I love the new remakes. It's more reimaginings. This is a pure remake as far as keeping that classic style but giving it updated graphics. And the fact that this was on GameCube is even more amazing. Still holds up when you put it through the HD remasters. I played it on a remaster collection on PS4. And I love the pre-rendered backgrounds. I love seeing Chris and Jill getting to choose between both of them. The twist with Albert Wesker, seeing the Spencer Mansion. It's a perfect game, Even after all these years of the classic style, you still get scared. You don't know what's around the corner. I love the fixed cameras, the monsters, the item management. And once you figure out how to work around the item management and puzzles and herbs, this game becomes fun once you know what you're doing. They expanded upon a lot of stuff as well. Overall, this is a classic. Without this video game, both the original 96 one and the remake, Resident Evil would not be where it is today. After that, at number 4 is Resident Evil 3 Nemesis and Resident Evil 3 Remake. I count them both. I love both versions. Of course, would I have loved some of the sequences they cut out of the original? Absolutely. When I fought Mr. X, I was scared in the Resident Evil 2 Remake. I was like, what is a Nemesis going to be like? He's not that much of a threat in the remake, but in the original, he would follow you everywhere. That guy was like the Terminator. He was relentless. I love Jill Valentine. It's nice seeing them expand upon that and having this game take place before, during, and after Resident Evil 2. Seeing Carlos Oliveira. This has a cool story. And with the Nemesis, it brings something new. It's an expansion of Resident Evil 2, but it also feels like the next level, And in many ways, this feels like the perfect conclusion for a trilogy as far as Raccoon City with the Spencer Estate, the Outbreak, and the aftermath of the Outbreak. And that is such a cool kind of little arc in itself. Like Resident Evil could have just been 3 games. And I love the remake and what they do. Despite the cut content, it feels so cinematic now. And both games are just Resident Evil at its finest, to say the least. After that, at number 3, for me, this is a different placement now. Tied is Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8 Village. I love both these first-person view games. Resident Evil 7 really brought it back to basics. You have the Baker family. You have a house. It's more like Resident Evil again, kind of like the mansion, but with a house. And Ethan Winters, Capcom does not love his hands, let me just tell you that. But it's nice seeing him trying to save his wife, Mia. There's some moments that feel very much like Texas Chainsaw Massacre rolled with Evil Dead and Silent Hill. Like, it doesn't feel Resident Evil. It feels like something completely different, but I love that because Resident Evil desperately needed to go back to its horror roots. It's nice seeing them not only perfect the first person, but also create the RE engine, which is just a work of art, all the way to the twists and turns, the boss battles. That last boss battle is insane. Even though Chris Redfield looks completely different, I love it. And going to Resident Evil Village, it's like Resident Evil 4. But with first person. And forget zombies. We're doing freaking vampires, witches, and werewolves now. That opening gave me the feeling I had when I played Resident Evil 4 for the first time. And I wonder if it was like a test run for them to remake Resident Evil 4 now in retrospect, thinking about it. I love how the game opens, what you think Chris Redfield is doing. You're like, why is Chris acting this way? Why is he attacking Mia? So many twists and turns. Heisenberg's there. Lady Dimitrescu. The Benevento house is one of the scariest portions. That doll is creepy, and that baby, holy shit, that baby is like the most creepiest thing I've ever played in a video game ever. Like, just don't get me started on that. And yeah, did I mention that Capcom does not like Ethan Winter's hands? It was great all the way to the end, how it tied to Spencer, and it was ultimately a love letter for the first 25 years of Resident Evil. Now with the new ranking, Resident Evil 4, both the original and the remake, are back at the number 2 spot. I played the original again. I love that, but the remake, this is how you do a remake, up there with RE2. It's not really a remake, more than like Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 remake are not remakes, they're reimaginings. And Resident Evil 4, it's great seeing the actor who played Leon back from Resident Evil 2. Ada and Luis's voices are different. They take a while to get used to, but I like the characterizations. And speaking of characterizations, Ashley is leaps and bounds better in the remake than she is in the original. Leon, help! But I love the original as well. Stationary, it was the first one to have like no ink ribbons as far as like regular modes. It was the first one to have like the action element, but not forget about the horror element. And the remake doubles down on the creepy horror atmosphere. It feels very much like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I love it. I love the changes they do make with Krauser, Luis Serra lasting a bit longer, Ashley, Loris Sattler. Like, the Los Illuminados are very threatening in this new one. The first one is like B-movie action. The new one's a bit more grounded and realistic. They're both for like B action movies, but for two different eras. Resident Evil 4 is not only one of my favorite Resident Evils, it's one of my favorite video games, period. It may very well be one of the best remakes, and even though the gunplay does feel a bit clunky, I like that you can move and shoot, and once you figure out the melee moves with the knife combos and stealth, it gets really fun. And did I mention the Chicago Typewriter being the Chicago Sweeper, infinite ammo, getting the hand cannon, going through the different modes? I love it. Great puzzle pieces, moments of terror, side quests, the merchant, what are you buying? What are you selling? I love him. Overall, such a fantastic game and a great evolution of Leon S. Kennedy. After that, at number 1, for me personally, is still Resident Evil 2 Original and Resident Evil 2 Remake. Resident Evil 2 Remake is just so cool seeing how cinematic it looks with modern graphics. The only nitpick I have with it is that the A-B storylines do not like interchange. Like, the original one felt like two completely different stories, and the stuff you did in playthrough A affected playthrough B. This one is just like the same character, same events, and they create some continuity issues. But other than that, I love Claire and Leon. Mr. X is terrifying. Even when you put the original soundtrack in there, I love the story. Seeing Ada Wong, getting to play as Ada. Oh man, the remake with the engine. I love Resident Evil in all forms, but third person is where it's at. And there's just something special about like a rookie cop running into Claire Redfield, and then you having to survive an outbreak in a city. Like, the first one was limited to a mansion. This is like a city is just outbreak. And the original, like, even though it was smaller, like both 2 and 3, Resident Evil 2, the older games felt larger, even though they were smaller, if that makes any sense. But the creepy atmosphere adds to it. Traditional zombies, it cannot go wrong. You can have fast Las Plagas zombies, you can have werewolves, you can have BOWs, but nothing beats the old school zombies. And Resident Evil 2 is one of the most perfect survival horror experiences I've ever played in both the original and the remake. And yeah, it's why I love Resident Evil. Anyway, let me know your favorite Resident Evil games down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out these other videos for more content. In the meantime, stay safe and healthy, everyone. Till next time. Hasta luego.